many people have strong feelings about GDKP raid groups. Why is this? I like GDKPs as an option, but these are the primary issues I find with it. From the perspective of a raid organizer, these might not sound like issues at all. Here's the first one: absolution from loot division related problems. Next, we have tyrannical levels of raid control. And finally, massive personal reward paired with lower risk than hard reserving. For the organizer, that is. There's also real money trading, gold biting, yada yada concerns. I'll address those first. Here is the Steelman pro GDKP stance about the equal loot opportunity and superior raid performance in GDKP runs. Rather or not people are buying gold in a GDKP group, the average gold of each member should converge to a similar value. GDKP makes it so you get rewarded every run. Total return is rather unaffected, but variance is minimized. Everyone hates risk, right? And also, the extreme levels of control offered to the organizer allow for better pug grades. That's the end of the Steelman. The part about GDKPs allowing for better pug grades is, in my opinion, inarguable. But here's a situation where the richest members will maintain a gold advantage for so long that maybe you'll never get any loot. Imagine the second highest bid for an item is far below what the highest bidder would be willing to pay. This means the highest bidder has a lot of excess capital. It will take a very long time for them to bleed this out to the others in the group. This property of having excess capital would have to hold true across many items for this individual, but that's pretty believable, right? Someone with a lot of gold feels like it matters less to them, so they'll spend more on many pieces, but not necessarily so much more that they're going to be tapping out and actually increasing your gold by an appreciable amount where you can compete with them one day. This is true rather or not people are buying gold, and it's also true rather or not people increase the amount of gold they buy over time. Here's an even crazier thing to imagine. You could be a gold buyer in Classic Era. You could go to GDKPs all the time. You could spend no gold in these GDKPs. Maybe you usually raid with an LC guild on another character, and it's still possible that you'd never be able to afford a Gressel. That might sound crazy. I am pro GDKP, but this is true. I've seen Gressel go for over gold cap every time it's dropped. But this is anecdotal, and I've only seen 2 of them drop ever in a GDKP. The final part of the pro GDKP argument is reward variance minimization. Only DKP competes here, but really GDKP is still far better, as the transactions are atomic upon the completion of the raid, as you're paid out right when the raid ends. You aren't placing a bet on your raid group surviving another raid, like you do with DKP, and you aren't even placing a bet on the raid completing, unless you primarily want to buy items, and then you kind of are. Now to the original 3 points. Absolution from loot division problems, tyrannical levels of raid control, and massive personal reward paired with lower risk than hard reserving. So about the absolution from loot division. GDKP fosters a level of indifference to loot division that is it's borderline insane. There is no etiquette. In the same way that capitalism dissociates workers from their labor, enabling laborers to accept any task to earn money, and that is do things that are potentially like immoral, GDKP disconnects bidders from any sense of social responsibility with regards to loot. Bidding also absolves leadership from all responsibility with regards to loot. And I think this is very important. And finally, bidding suppresses discussion on loot. Discussing why the top bid should not be allowed to win is to the disadvantage of all disinterested third parties in a raid. As a guild-related example, I have been in a GDKP guild, a couple of them in Era, that had cliques which would bid each other up as a form of fucking with each other, but not in a playful way. They kind of disliked each other a little too seriously. And bringing this obviously toxic relationship up is impractical. Allowance of any discussion over bidding rules it's asinine. People can trade gold to their friends anyways, and no leadership figure would institute GDKP and then try to make loot decisions on the spot like this. You forgive yourself for the problems of GDKP before you set up a GDKP group. I've done this before. It's great to be absolved of responsibility, but it's dangerous to those you're meant to serve. The second problem, and also benefit, borderline tyrannical levels of raid control. You are using a non-role-based loot system. This means the loot master will not get banned under any circumstances. These are generally unsupported transactions, like server-to-server gold transfer agreements. buyer beware. As the raid progresses, your earnings per unit time increase in a GDKP run because you haven't been paid yet. This is awesome for getting people to stick in raid. And as a master looter and raid leader, oh man, I love it. If I want you to do exactly what I say, damn, do I got you good right now. What are you going to do? Leave? Please do. No responsibility with regards to the TOS paired with this anti-sunk cost fallacy leads to a problem. I've seen many raid organizers randomly come up with a reason not to pay someone at the end of a run. Sometimes it's reasonable. Other times they say goofy stuff like, Fury Warriors should have demo shouted more. You're not getting a cut. Or, Mage, why didn't you use counterspell? Hey man, you said kicks. Usually people are talking about melee when they say that. And I'm talking about the raid organizer wouldn't say this and they would just spring it on someone at the very end of the raid when they're handing out gold. Some borderline examples of this could be unstated sunder armor requirements. The raid ends, I never told you how many sunders you had to do, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe you did 23 sunders. Kick, you're getting no gold? Get out of here. And now for my favorite. Massive personal reward paired with lower risk than hard reserving, for the organizer that is. Hard reserving is kind of uncomfortable. You can also make a GDKP and bring less bidding competition to get a very similar effect. And of course, you get a cut as the raid lead and the main tank. Hell, maybe even take a cut for being the master looter too. It's your run, do whatever you want. There are ways to compensate yourself as the organizer that are rather invisible to the raid at large. I don't think this is nefarious always, like in the case of having these stated cuts for these roles and then you try to take a whole bunch of them on. But anything that lowers the expected pot to try to transfer a larger percentage of the wealth to yourself, so less wealth to go around, but a larger percentage to yourself as the organizer, that stuff's kind of suspect. All of these problems of GDKP, they're serious, but I think the traditional role-based loot systems invert control within a raid group, as the roles themselves have more control than the raid leader even. Hell, the order of boss kills has more control than the raid leader. If you've ever ran an SR pug before, I bet you've had this happen. People leave once their SRs don't drop. What the fuck? If that was bannable, I think that SR would be a lot more palatable to run as a raid leader. I expect Fresh to be pretty fucked when it comes to full pug runs. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to make a pug when you can't run it as a GDKP. It's very hard to organize a group of strangers. Most of them are going to act borderline retarded, and you deal with a lot of stressful shit. Also, GDKP keeps geared people coming back, so you have a chance of developing bonds with new, productive players when you make a GDKP group. I expect pugs to remain hellish on the Fresh. And right now in MC, they're fucking wild. I really don't know how any Molten Core run takes over 2 hours if you have douses, but a lot of pug groups seem to find a way. Whatever Blizzard does with regards to this GDKP stuff or other raid organization-based TOS changes, I think they really should keep in mind who creates the community, who creates groups. People who organize others are much more important to the WoW community at large, at least in my opinion, than the slew of Redditors that want to be lone wolves, pug, and make no friends. But I just feel like Blizzard really, really, really tries to appeal to this solo play, casual person that isn't trying to get highly connected and make this an important part of their lives. If you agree and you think that it's fucking cringe that people want to be lone wolves and not make friends, hit me up in Discord. My guild's recruiting. Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm making another raid group. Not sure when it's going to be ready. DM me, we can talk. Thanks for listening.